Hello everyone, welcome to another part of the 3D printer build series. This is part 3, and on this part I want to talk a bit about the Z-axis. For the Z-axis we have here 3 stepper motors and 3 lead screws, so this bed can level itself, we can do non-planar printing and such. Now, on the previous 2 videos, whenever I showed about the CAD or talked about the Z-axis, there used to be linear rods for all of the mounts here. Now the linear rods, the main problem was that because this would be quite big, when the bed was in the middle position, it would have quite a lot of wobble due to the bad support of the rods and the torque that was created when the movement. So that was an excuse for me to kick the rods out. I'll use them somewhere else and upgrade to linear rails. Now, yes, linear rails are a bit more pricey, but this is not a cheap printer to begin with, so the price difference of this is not that big compared to the whole price of the whole project. And they also, you do end up with a better printer. And not only that, these parts are way easier to print compared to with the linear rods. So now that we have the linear rail here. This part attaches to the rail, to the trapezoid nut with the lead screw, and also holds this here with bearings here. Same thing mirrored over here. And on the back, same ordeal, trapezoid nut connected to the linear rail, connected here. And as you can see, new bases for mounting the bed have also been made. Here, as you can see, all of these are new. They're much better compared to the old ones. No play from threaded inserts or stuff like that. These are solid. And since all of these are going to print on ABS, there will be practically no flexing whatsoever. So, now that we've talked a bit about the whole design, we can go to the 3D printer, and hopefully after what is less than a week of printing, we'll have some parts in our hands and we can start assembling this whole construction. So after many redesigns, a long time printing and some time at the vise, we have ended up with these parts right here. Now if we take one of these for example, all this does, this connects the bed to the linear rails. So here we have this little plate that will connect to the linear rail. Then on here is where the threaded nut will go for the lead screws. And then here there are 2 bearings with a rod that is coupled to this thing here. This is a very snug fit, so it doesn't move around on this direction. It only moves around on this direction. And then all this does is essentially just hold this linear rod in place for this to move up and down, and also like this. And at the end of this is just a little thing that is perfectly shaped so you can connect to the bed. So essentially this is this mirrored, and this is for the left and right motors. And then for the middle motor, the part is already connected to the linear rail, because to get the screws here, you can't really get at them after this is in. So you first have to put this in and then put this after the screw to the linear rail. This is a bad design. I'll see if I can do anything about it later. But you know, if you have Allen if you do Allen screws, you can probably get at it like this, but I do Phillips, so this is not very good. But as you can see, same deal here. Threaded nut there, bearing and bearing, and then same design here, and then this part is for the middle of the axis. So now we're going to go ahead and go over to the printer and attach the stepper motor mounts and all that. And for example, here this is the mount for the middle. This is a bearing mount for the top, and this is where the motor will go. The others have already been installed, so we're going to go ahead and install this and take a look at it. And then we're going to go put these parts here in and put the bed on and see if it works better than the other times that required redesigns. So anyways, let's go do that. So anyways, here, excuse the mess at the bottom here, but here, as you can see, we have a 30-30 extrusion here with the stepper here mounted at this plate. This is the same plate that I used when I had linear rods, which are no longer here, but the plate still works. I will probably design a mount without the holes there, but for now this works. I didn't want to have to print again stuff. And then up here, same thing, the bearing mount, also the same thing with the linear rods, and this is essentially mirrored over here. And then we have a 30-30 on the back, which is a new addition, that on here the rail will go, and I will put the motor mounts, the bearing mount up there and the motor down there. So I'll put that in and, we'll get back to it. So here we have the stepper mounted with 1, 2, 3 screws, and the bearing mounted with essentially the same little platform here. And for example, I put the lead screw through. This is obviously going to come out because the parts are going to have to come in before we place the screws. But as you can see, this spins absolutely with no problem whatsoever. And as we have here, we have the same over here and over here. So now we're going to go ahead and put everything on linear rails. Well, put the linear rails on here first with M3 3030 T-nuts and then get the parts on. So let's get on doing that. So as you can see, we've mounted all of the lead screws to the bed mounting points, one for all of these here. We pass it through the bearing on top, then go to this anti-backlash T-nut here, so you have to hold the spring tension while you run the lead screw through, and then once you run it all the way through by moving this up and down, you put it down here on this 5 to 8 millimeter coupler and you hold it tight with the little screw over there. Now same goes for all of these here. As a little note, as you can see, this is a bit taller. There is no reason for this. This used to be flush, but because of a design oversight where I had to lower the whole printer by 10 millimeters, this is now 10 millimeters higher than it should be. I could cut it, but I don't really care. The difference is minimal. So that's about it. And now that the mounting points are done, we can go ahead and talk about the whole bed assembly and get it on the printer. So this here is the bed assembly. This is essentially marked for heat beds. All connected together to form a 400 by 400 grid. Now all of these here are mounted to a 2020 frame and they're mounted with a connection of aluminum and plastic nuts, so you have structure but also some heat insulation. And this whole frame is made of 2020 aluminum, as you can see. And if I was to turn it up, you can see that there is another rod over here, another 2020 for stability, and there is a small aluminum plate that holds all the middle of the beds together so they don't flop around. If we look at it from the top once again, you can, the exposure is kind of shit, but you might be able to see that here for the screws, I took a chamfering tool to make the holes a tiny bit bigger so the screws don't stick out of the bed, because I am going to put a bit of glass plate over here and don't want this to interfere. So these are like just flush with the bed. But if you are going to do something like this, be careful, because all of these marks here are essentially traces. And if you scratch them or maybe cause a short, the bed will not work anymore. So be very careful. Here I tested all the beds, so they work. So this whole assembly is pretty simple. It's actually a pretty sturdy construction. Now that we need to mount it onto the printer by the points here. So let's go ahead and get done doing that. And here we have the finished Z-axis assembly. As you can see, the bed has been mounted with these on all of the sides, and you can see also back there. Now the way I did it, it's kind of hard mounting this. You have to hold it and then mount one of those, and then while this is moved carefully so it doesn't break, and then mount the one on the back and then mount this one last. That's how I did it. It took me like 5-10 minutes, but it's a bit of struggling. But anyways, that's done now. So this whole Z-axis now is completely done. As you can see, you can independently move up and down on each one of these, and that can be helped to level the bed. And that's it. So thank you for watching this segment of this 3D printer build. Next we will talk about the XY axis and its linear rails and that. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, like and subscribe on that, and hopefully I'll see you in the next part. Goodbye.